went, I started seeing opportunities. And again, when you fail in business, and I failed a few times since, the first reaction for us is to actually run or to hide. It's like you're trying to just, oh my God, it failed. I'm not good. Why did I even try? And then we're
Hmm.
trying to find the safety in like 9 to 5 jobs. And that's what I did for a few years because, of course, I had to pay back my debt. But I wanted to, I thought I'm not going to do it again. It's too stressful and I'm not good enough. But then after a
Hmm.
couple of years, eventually, like that feeling resurfaces, right? I think
Comes back, doesn't it?
this is a part of who I am, and this is how.
So welcome to this episode of The Power Shift, where we have a really, really special guest who is not a doctor. Really, really exciting. So basically the aim is to bring loads more non-doctors who are really, really influential entrepreneurs, leaders, industry partners into this podcast, just so that you can get a really clear understanding as how leaders in industry think and view us as doctors. So, really warm welcome to Alex Landowski, who has got a really incredible story of how he built his, I call it empire, because I feel it as an empire, as an entrepreneur. In healthcare, health tech, and particularly like medical logistics. So, welcome, Alex.
Uh,
Thank you so much for jumping on this
Hi,
podcast.
Abeyna. Thanks so much for having me, and warm welcome and kind words. Uh, there was indeed at some point an empire, kind of. I felt like an empire.
Yeah,
Um,
you can see what's at the top of my mind. Anyway, let's talk about the
yeah,
time where there was an empire. We'll get to that. But let's start with you as a human being. So you're from Poland originally, right?
that's correct. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, looking at all the stories that's online, the narrative is you came to the UK with 200 quid and a bike. And then you managed to turn those two things into a multi-million pound businesses in health tech, right?
That's
200 quid
it.
and a bike to multi. I'm really curious. So what sparked that shift?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah. So
what was it? And I'm not even going to what happened for that to occur. What
yeah.
happened internally for you to go from like Poland and then coming to the UK for some reason, and then wow, big bam, this is what
Yeah.
I'm
So
building.
the reason I came to the UK was
Hmm.
because I've had failed business back in Poland. Okay. So that answers a lot
Okay.
already. So you
Yeah,
see,
great. That's great context actually, because failures
yeah,
in business are wonderful.
I think it turns out like I've discovered in myself this entrepreneurial spirit, which is I think part of who I am. So
Mm.
back in the day, back in Poland, I was studying at a uni, political science, completely random subject. I'm not sure what I was doing there, and I opened my business, which was a streetwear. So a long story short, I had a shop in one of the biggest cities in Poland. It was financed from a government loan. They gave me government loan, financed by EU funds or something. And I basically opened a shop and became very popular. We were selling like streetwear, sneakers, Nike shoes. Became so popular that I was invited by Nike Poland. They partnered with us, and it's just, went really well. And because I was very young and inexperienced, the very well part it was my problem. So it became too good too fast, and I wasn't able to handle it. And basically, business collapsed 2 years after we've opened it.
Mm.
Yeah, I was like too much rock and roll partying and everything, right? When business started going well. But I also quit my uni halfway through. So two years later, after opening my first business, I ended up with a debt to pay back to the government, that money they lent me initially. And I was dropout from the uni. So I was like, okay, so what are my choices now? And I decided to come to the UK to essentially pay back money, to pay the debts back in Poland. So
Hmm.
stay here for 12 months. That was in 2010. Pay back, whatever I had to, and then go back to Poland and just live my normal life. But like I
Hmm.
said, that was 2010. And, it was meant to be 1 year, but I'm here since, right?
Mm-hmm. So I hear that that experience brought you to the UK to pay back some money. So what actually kept you here?
So
How did that transform?
yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like when I didn't know about England much before coming. And I came in 2010, that was a very difficult part time to find a job. It wasn't as easy as it is now, right? It was like really hard. But once you got that job, there was a kind of like a proud and feeling of like, okay, now is my life is on track. And when I started
Mm-hmm.
working as a bicycle courier, I mean, my first employer like cheated on me. I wasn't paid, like I had all this, uh, drama stories behind. When I got actual job, when I started making some money, it got to me like, hang on, I can actually cycle, like, be on a bike all day in London, which was quite fun, and make a much better money than what I could make back then in Poland. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
that was like, okay, I'm staying here. I'm not going back. And then I made some friends, and I started, I got this like feeling of London, which I really loved. And I just decided this is my place for time being. I wasn't sure how long I'm going to stay in London. But as my journey went, I started seeing opportunities, and again, when like when you fail in business, and I failed a few times since, the first reaction for us is to actually run or to hide. It's like you're trying to just, oh my God, it failed. I'm not good. Why did I even try? And then we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find the safety in like 9 to 5 jobs. And that's what I did for a few years because, of course, I had to pay back my debt. But I wanted to, I thought, I'm not going to do it again. It's too stressful and I'm not good enough. But then after a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years, eventually, like that feeling resurfaces, right? I think
Comes back, doesn't it?
this is a part of who I am. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And now,
Yeah.
I was
It's
scanning for
that real
opportunities.
kind of feeling of, the real entrepreneur can't really be held back by,
Yes.
yeah, nine to fives. But no, I totally hear that. Sorry, continue.
No, no, it's like, so, I couldn't get rid of it. So this was part which essentially kept me in. And uh, I started working as a bicycle courier for just a normal company delivering like, post, letters, whatever. There was
Mm.
no food deliveries back then as popular as now. I was a typical like old school, bike messenger with radio, walkie-talkie, A to Z paper map, and just cycling across to London, right? There was no Google Maps. I mean, I think that was like
There
early
was
days,
Google Maps back in those days. I remember that.
very
2000.
early
So
days.
long
I
ago.
wasn't even, I don't think I could even, use it. I didn't have a smartphone. That was like 2010. It was really
Okay.
early days of all of it. Um, so that was the beginning of my journey. But about 2 years later, no, a year and a half later, working as a bicycle courier, I applied to a different company where, by pure luck, I got a job in the healthcare department. And this is I think, still one of, if not the biggest same-day health delivery companies in London. And as it happened, I was applying for a job. They said, "Oh, we have this healthcare department. We're looking for bicycle couriers. Would you like to start there?" And there was nobody else working as a bicycle courier at that time. So I was a pioneering, the whole journey for bicycle couriers there. So I said, "Yeah, why not? Like,
Wow.
whatever, right?" And then, a few weeks later, I'm cycling across London, delivering blood samples across, clinics, labs, medical equipment. We going to hospitals, waiting for the surgery to finish so I can pick up the instruments and deliver it back to the lab or somewhere, for the sanitization or cleaning. And I'm just like, this is really cool. Like, it's like next level of courier work where you actually,
Hmm.
I felt like it's a meaningful job because I was doing actually something really important, not just post is important, but it can wait, right? Whether
Hmm. Hmm.
if you have a surgery operation and I go to Great Ormond Street Hospital for kids, and they put me on site and they say wait there for an hour until the operation finished because I need to take something somewhere. And I was like, oh, I like that. And that's how I was introduced to whole healthcare world in London, which obviously is a very, very low level of healthcare world, right? Being bicycle courier in, medical bicycle courier.
Hmm. Not quite. Not quite. I mean, at the end of the day, as you said, like it's crucial. Your
Yeah.
role. Everyone in healthcare has their position, and as
Yeah.
part of a system, everyone is actually, as in many ways, I see it as equally as important as the other. Because if that system or that chain is broken, then that's when the shit hits the fan a lot of the
Oh,
time.
100%. And you probably
So
know it from self, like being a doctor yourself and working, it's like you need all these people around in
yeah,
order for you or a doctor to be able to perform his or her job, right? It's like, so me, the
absolutely.
Polish guy on the bicycle, could barely speak English, cycling across London. I was
Mm,
like, I really felt like I was needed, right? And that gave me this kind of a drive, to stay in healthcare and just get in, and then progress. So I moved into the company. Well, after 3 years, I've had enough of cycling, and I've realized this is the end of it. Like there's no more future for me there. Like I mean, I was a top earner, top career in the company. So there was no.
How did you become a top earner as a career? Like, do
I was
you
just
get
the
paid
fastest,
per
really, and most
the
reliable.
fastest? Okay.
Uh, it's
Okay.
yeah, there's the mix of two. I mean, you have to be reliable, so you have to come to
Hmm.
work because
Was
they.
it commission basis or?
No, that was a self-employed. It was a typical gig worker,
Right. Okay.
uh, self-employed courier with my own bicycle, my own gear. They would give me radio bag, some basic stuff. But that was a different, it was just a normal thing. Everybody was like this in
Hmm.
the industry. And then technically you could come in whenever you wanted as a self-employed, but everybody expected you to come in Monday, Friday, and within the hours I was
Hmm.
asked to come. So I would log in about 8 o'clock or 9 or 10, whatever my day was, and they knew. But because Alex is logging in that particular part of London around this time, there was already some jobs allocated or pre-allocated for me.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't log in 1 or 2 or 3 times, then they would stop pre-allocating those jobs because they were like, okay, we can't
Right.
rely
Okay.
on Alex. And
Okay.
in return, they would feed me with good jobs, like urgent jobs. And me in return, I would work harder, right? So that was like the cycle of, we were helping each other sort of, right? And I liked it. And I really liked it. That it worked for me, that model. And especially like, I used to cycle, for example, from West End to Canary Wharf twice a day. So it's a quite far. It was a motorbike
Wow.
distance, but I would just get
Wow.
on my
Get those
bike.
legs going.
Yeah, and I would
Awesome.
just go straight down there, back again, and then afternoon again, and I would do it fast, and they just liked it.
Great. Well, jumping to your businesses now, so particularly Body Check and Paramino, like you're tackling quite specific gaps in the system, right? So, what problems were you most passionate about solving that led to the success of these businesses?
Again, it was kind of an accident, really. I've learned to just get along, get with a tide, sort of, right? Because the whole body check, the idea is still evolving, really changing. But the idea was about to be, it was around blood testing, and the whole blood testing thing came from my first business, really, which was called Medical Logistics, which I sold. Mainly was a logistics, of course, that was my background. But then on top of it, we added on home visit from phlebotomists and medics. So my idea was to, rather than sending a courier on its own to somebody's home, so you have to have a doctor come to your house, draw your blood because there
Hmm.
was not really phlebotomists available, and then they would order a courier to come in to take that blood back to the laboratory. And I was thinking, why don't we just send one person, phlebotomist, and then they can draw
The
the blood and take it
phlebotomy and
back to
then
the
trace
lab.
it back. Yeah,
So I trained myself as a phlebotomist, which, by the way, I really don't like blood needles. But I
yeah.
had to try it because, I wanted to do it as a business. So I wanted to,
Yeah, of course, of course.
so I did
Sacrifice
that.
made. Yeah,
I've
fear
had real
overcome.
patience, I draw some blood, so there was no drama, but it was actual a good idea. So we started offering as a service. And the long story short, we got to the point where we had really top, athletes and VIPs in using our services because obviously, if like top sports person, athlete, they don't
Yeah,
go to normal GP, right? And
yeah,
their lifestyle requires them to keep checking their bloods, etc. So we would go to these people's house or hotels, draw the blood, take it to the lab, and that's how I was introduced to this whole laboratory blood testing labs world. And obviously within them, as we grew, as I was getting more experience, I was more exposed to all of it, I started getting more interested in actually offering blood tests. And I've been involved in many, many projects since, including COVID, testing, of course. And right now we've been selling blood tests for hormonal changes, for women. We've been building projects for men where we just do testosterone tests. So there's plenty of it, and it's just I kind of feel like blood testing is a tricky business, but there is a lot of opportunities to actually innovate and grow that part.
mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what I love about it is that you saw well, a challenge or a problem that actually was quite simply solved in that sense, and then developed a business out of it. And what we get with doctors, particularly in healthcare systems, there's problems everywhere, right? There's problems everywhere. But the challenge that doctors face a lot of the time is that they're not in an environment where they can actually quickly implement and solve that problem themselves, because you've got the system and the barriers within the system
Yeah.
that don't necessarily support innovation.
Yeah.
That makes any sense. So, can you tell me a little bit more about, I mean, obviously being an entrepreneur, like, you spot the problem and then you start having conversations and getting things done to actually solve it. But how, I guess the question is like, why did you feel like you had to then start your own business to do that rather than do it within the company that you had been working with?
Yeah, I actually have my own personal story.
Mm.
So when my wife was pregnant with our first son, there was some sort of complication, and she had some little bleeding or something, and we had to wait for a midwife to come and check on her. And the midwife gave us like a window, 10 until 6, which was already quite big, and that was lots of stress for us because we weren't sure what's going on. And then at the end of the day, midwife texted us back saying, "Oh, sorry, I can't make it today because there was some reason." And I was like, really not. I was angry, not on her, about the lack of like the system is
Yeah, the
failing
system.
me, particularly me on that day.
And this was NHS or was this
That was
private?
an NHS, yeah.
Okay.
And I was thinking like, why? I was obviously willing to pay for somebody to come because we wanted to check their blood or something. I think there was something about checking their blood. And there was nobody to do it. Like you could not order that kind of service. There was nobody doing it in scale. So there was only
Mm-hmm.
NHS midwives or nurses, community nurses going around, but there's only one or
Mm-hmm.
two person, right? They can only do that much. And then obviously as an entrepreneur, I say, okay, I have money. What can I do with it? How can I get this? Somebody has to come and do it for me. And there was nobody there. So I was like, hang on, there must be more people like me having the same
Mm-hmm.
problem. And especially in London, people in London have money to do things. So I saw it, of course, as a gap in the market, but also as a kind of way of sort of supporting the NHS. Because if somebody can pay voluntarily with his own money or her money, why would I want to have wait for that community-based nurse or midwife might go to somebody who can't afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the idea behind it. And normally that's how, the best ideas I think come from our own personal experience when something doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my experience.
Mm. So so I see that that personal experience then led you to actually take action and
Yeah.
create something. And that was mainly for your, I guess, I see a lot of businesses, even like this business that I'm running, that's come from my own personal
Yeah.
pain. But I guess the question is like, why didn't I just go and set it up within, say, the NHS, for example? Or do you know what I mean? Because like a lot of doctors that are like looking to say, right, I can see this problem in the NHS. I've got this
Because the
great
NHS is too
idea.
slow. It takes forever.
Exactly.
I'm
Because
sorry,
like
but that's it
that
is,
is
right?
the challenge, especially when you've got like this existing institution that's got its way and it's old and it's been around for ages. And we know that a lot of people really struggle to even sell to the NHS, let alone develop innovations within the NHS. And as you said, slow because it's big and it's got so many different moving parts.
Yeah. And it's very, I mean, I'll give you another example. A couple of years ago, I ran a quite big project for the NHS. We flew a first ever beyond visual line of sight drone with a medical payload for the NHS. So that was project under one of my companies, Medical Logistic. We flew drone between a hospital in Coventry and Rugby. So it was like 35 miles for like on, the previous flights were outside, out of like across the sea or something. We were flying actually over the land
Wow.
for 35 miles. So it took us like 2 years to prepare all the permits first, like from
Wow,
CAA.
2 years to 35 miles.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then, excuse me, we had all this NHS trust part of it, and it was really lots of work and discussions. And the problem was, you see, it wasn't about tech. The tech was there, perfect, and we've done it for over a month, no issues, complete success for the project, for the pilot. But what was stopping us initially was the lack of guidance, clarity in terms of like, can we do, can we not? And then Nobody wanted to make a decision. Nobody wanted to sign up for like, I'll do it,
Yeah.
right? And this is the one of the challenges I think for the NHS, because one thing is it's too hard to find people who are willing to innovate, but that's the other part of it. But once you find these people, then they're kind of getting stuck at the moment when they're about to pull the trigger. And as a business person, as an entrepreneur, that's the key. You have to be able to pull the trigger rather fast if you want to innovate or if you want to actually do a business, because we're competing against other businesses. And
Mm.
as a small business owner or small entrepreneur, your advantage is speed of like action. You can just act fast, and then you adapt and you move and you see what works and you double down on that. With the NHS, that is exactly what they don't want. They want to go, just hang on, let us triple check, check everything,
Yeah.
and then again, and then the management change, and then you do it all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then someone else comes in and doesn't like the project, and then
Exactly, and then they pull the plug, right?
you're like,
And
who are
we
you?
can, yeah. So that doesn't help innovation,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. So let's go to mindset shift. So mindset is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of doctors face, especially, going back from the NHS mindset that you just described to developing careers, impact, businesses, leadership, everything in industry. So I'd love
Mhm.
to hear from you in particular, what mindset shifts were crucial for you to then start building these big businesses from, well, failed business and career?
But is
What
it
did you have
my
to change
mindset
in
or
your
people
mind?
mindset of medical people I worked
I'd
with?
say your mindset, crucially.
Uh, so I didn't know about challenges. I was not aware of barriers. And I think that was the key for me, because as I got more, got more experience and I'm now more aware of things, I tend to overthink. Okay, will that work? Will the
Mm.
NHS, for example, allow this to happen? Whether before I was just naive enough to think like, that can be done. It's just a problem. I'll solve it. And with this kind of mindset, it's easier to actually to get things done, right? Because you just go and you just try what works, what doesn't, and you just kind of naturally, there's a path forming for you naturally. And that was the key for me when I realized that rather than looking for no's, see what can be done and just go with it. Uh, and this is also something I've had this experience when I had my own lab, which we built in central London, and it was obviously heavy regulated, and UCAS, CQC, all these people, medical director, doctor, quality manager, and I've noticed that was one of the least liked businesses I've ever created, and it was one of the most expensive ones, because it was always some kind of challenge on paper, right? It's like businesses thrive in this gray area, which is like nobody's been there, but it's legal, but it's nobody been there for a reason. And then you go there and you discover that's exactly where you should be, because that's where the problem is. Well, and you need to build a solution. And then you got these policies coming in and accreditators, and their policies, the all these documents are built on the 20, 30, 40 years back experience, where they're right now, the tech and everything's changed. We haven't adapted our approach from a legal perspective, like policies, for example, how we can actually grow together, right? So we have a policy from 40 years ago or 20 years ago, where the tech is changing monthly. So that
Hmm.
was the biggest. So positive mindset for me was like, just don't worry about the obstacles, just go for it and just break them or go around it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I found the negative part of it, which is like always this blockers, right? Oh, we can't do this because you can't do this because, and then the whole scientific stuff around it, I just suddenly like getting paralyzed. And me as an entrepreneur said, that's fine, guys, we can do it. We're gonna do this. Oh, I don't know. We're gonna have to do and write another policy for it. I said, oh God, that's it. That's
Mm. So I hear, yeah, so it's the so just to summarize, the naivety of being an entrepreneur. Actually, I totally identify with that. I'm like, oh, that's doable. I got no idea what the obstacles are, but we'll overcome them. Like that's basically the mindset. So like
But
having
then the
that,
more
but
you learn, you
also
can't. The more you becoming careful, right? The bigger your business is, the bigger your rich is. The kind of that naive, being
the
naive.
naivety it obviously has to drop. But
Yeah,
then
exactly.
that's the journey of a founder. You either stay or you go, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. No,
it is
100%.
that early stage naivety that actually gets things started, right?
Yeah,
And as you said, being in that gray area where, there are things that have never been done, and that's where you thrive. But
Yeah.
then once it's been done, you've got your competitors in, then it's like probably that's time for you to jump
Move
out.
on.
So no, I totally understand
Yeah,
that. And so around that, so I mean, let's move on to your, like, having worked with doctors. So you work with a number of different doctors
I
in the
have.
course of your businesses. So where do you, and let's talk about their mindset shifts to start. So, I mean, let's start with, like, where do you see the biggest value that doctors can bring into healthcare, health tech ventures in industry?
Uh, the obvious one is their knowledge and experience, being a medical professional. Because, right, for me, I can see a problem, but then there
Mhm.
is a way of doing it, of solving that problem, like clinical path and stuff like this. And I don't know about this, and I don't want to know about this. I want to be working with somebody who does, and then that's the where the strength come in, right? So the the problem usually have had with doctors in the past, it was they what I just described. I see it as a partnership where an entrepreneurial mindset, somebody who's totally from outside coming in and say, "Hey, is that a problem?" And they say, "Yeah, that is a problem." And then I propose the solution, or maybe I start working on it. Lots of doctors immediately they will shut it down, saying that it's not doable, it cannot be done, and they give me tons of reasons. Of course, I can. It's so easy to give me reasons why something is not going to be done. And my problem was like, can we not like try to find a solution together? Like, I'm not questioning you don't know how to do it, but I'm particularly with you specifically because I want your help on it, because I want your guidance as a doctor. It's easier now, I think, like especially with social media and tech, to find these kind of doctors and people because, like, for example, I'm very active on my LinkedIn, so I have doctors like this. They see my story, they get back to me. Oh, it's so inspiring, Alex. We'd love to have a chat. And then I build my network, and I actually have doctors which I can phone and I say, oh,
Mhm.
can you help me with this? Can I have a question? And they will not look at me like, oh, why are you coming to me with this one? But they're like, yeah, absolutely, right. So there's this
Mhm.
um, change in the mindset I see in within doctors community,
Mhm.
but quite often still. And I had this experience even this year, a few months back, when I was just kind of not directly told, like, we shouldn't be talking because I'm not part of it. But after that call, it was explained to me that because the lack of my medical knowledge was problematic or something like this, right? And I never tried to put myself as a medic or as a doctor. Like, I'm not, but we people, I think we can talk now. It's like that's where we might missing, right? It's not about your title, and
Mhm.
yes, by all means, be proud of who you are. I'm proud of who I am, but let's forget about this. Let's sit down as people and figure out that's the problem. Let's do some discussion about what we can bring to the table and then solve that problem together because that's essentially how we can actually progress and innovate rather than just
Mhm.
talking about this.
Who's expecting you to have medical knowledge?
And there were some doctors who just were not exactly comfortable with me not being a doctor. We're trying to do work in a part on a project.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, it's just it's like because I'm very open and very straightforward, and I'm just gonna say, and this is what I think, obviously respectfully, and I'm a nice guy. But they, I think, expected more like this scientific because we had this particular project I wanted to start working on a pilot, and I was just asking normal questions as a normal person, average Alex walking on the street. It's like, oh, can this be
Mm.
done? Can this be done? And this, and it apparently after that call, there was a few of us. One person told me that it probably was because I was asking two normal questions or not scientifically correct questions, so to say. And
Yeah, and I think
it's yeah,
I was going to say this, and this is a problem that we see because, I mean, as doctors, we've been trained to believe that our academic knowledge and approach is the value, right? And that therefore nobody else in the world should be stepping on that territory.
yeah,
That's just generally what we've been trained to believe in a kind of, and so I hear that not every doctor's like this, but
yeah,
it's interesting to see that there were some doctors that were questioning, your involvement as an entrepreneur. Like at the end of the day, like you need a team to do anything, right? Even in healthcare, not everyone's a doctor.
Yeah,
You need a
absolutely.
team, you need a team of people. So it's quite interesting that you've experienced that, because from what I understand, it's not too uncommon. And you see that particularly with like doctors who who have been around in the system for quite a long time, if you know what I mean, because that is quite an old way of thinking.
Yeah, but like you said, not every like definitely like it's not all the time like this. There's a lot of doctors I work with, and they were absolutely amazing and open-minded. I mean,
Yeah.
I've built a lab, a medical laboratory, pathological laboratory from scratch in central London with zero experience and knowledge of doing that before. And we
Hmm.
went through all the accreditations and full UCAS, CQC, all of these things. And I've only done it because I had this idea. There was three of us, and we just started building it again, like kind of naive, thinking it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But then only because I surrounded myself with this medical professionals and professionals, a doctor, a quality guy, quality manager, BMSs, biomedical scientists, all these people where I had a particular stupid question, I would just go to them, say, can you answer me this? And they'll say, yeah, that's the answer. For them, it's obvious. For me, it was like, interesting that I've learned something new.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And that's why like I said, I think it's especially the very active people on LinkedIn, like doctors, they are the ones who are very open to this kind of things. I found this correlation. It's
Yeah, no,
maybe.
absolutely, absolutely. Like, in order to even get onto LinkedIn
Hmm.
and be visible, you require a certain level of mindset,
Yes,
which is
agreed.
not normal for most doctors, I have to say. And so going back to the value that doctors bring, and some of the mindset challenges that you've experienced, um, what else, like, a doctor's listening to this and they're looking at developing their career in an industry. Um, what is it that they should invest in doing when it comes to finding the right companies or people to work with, positioning themselves in a way where they can bring the most value, or even just changing their mindset in order to, yeah, create the most value? Like, is there anything
Yes.
come to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of what I do professionally is I advise startups, either already being here in UK or the ones who want to expand their presence in the UK, their healthcare startups
Hmm.
or well-being. And 90% of these companies, at some point, rather sooner than later, they'll need some clinical staff as a part of their team, especially in the UK, because of the regulations and things we are talking about. So if you want to be serious, if you want to grow your business, you need to have somebody like this, at least not fully employed, but maybe some contractor, somebody who can
Hmm.
advise you. So for doctors, and like I say, I talk to these founders quite frequently. First of all, founders are not aware of it. Okay, so I would encourage doctors who are really serious about it, would like to change their career or maybe improve or like open the new opportunities.
Hmm.
We need to be able to find these guys, and it's very hard to find. The very few you see on LinkedIn, which I know most of them now because of my long experience in here, they're already super busy and very expensive, and they just have still NHS careers, and they're still trying to help some businesses in private. So you're not going to be able to do it. But there's a lot of other doctors who want to get into it, and we can't find them because how? How do you can't go to LinkedIn and say innovative doctor in search tab, right? It's like not going to show up. So for
Hmm.
doctors like this, I would encourage them to just be more present, like go out there. Like social media is part of, like it's not even social media anymore. It's just life, really, right? It's just
Yeah,
just be
it's
there. Like
work.
just be able exactly. Like it's part of your work. You don't even have to show your life or anything personal. Just tell
Yeah.
others what you do and you're here and you're happy to work with others. And then the most crucial part, I think, which lots of doctors would probably benefit from my perspective, with all the amazing experience they already have, would be to maybe be a bit more commercial. And that's a tricky one because, again, over years of my experience working in the medical, especially private, all these amazing scientists and doctors I worked with, majority of them had very little understanding of commercials. And especially if you've been in the NHS for a very long time, there is no, the commercial part is something we don't want to talk about. We can't, right? You don't talk about money in the NHS.
No, we don't talk about money. What's that?
Right? Exactly. You know how it ends, right? It's like, what?
We
You're going
barely
to
even get paid.
privatize
What's
our
that?
NHS? I said, no, no, nobody's going to privatize. Like, money runs everything, even NHS,
Yeah,
even
I
if you
know.
don't want to accept it. So
Yeah,
the doctor can actually understand that business needs to make money in order to explain its even existence. That's the whole reason for any business to exist in the first place.
Absolutely. It's money. You know,
It's money.
you
It's not
cannot,
solving problems, right? We can solve problems as a
even,
charity.
well, this is the thing. No, but charities need money.
It's
Everyone
there
needs
as well. Like
money.
money is a whole thing, and
NHS needs money.
absolutely. And I'm
You
not
know, they're
saying it's
like, they're
good or
like,
not.
oh,
It's
you know,
just a
we're
way.
not getting ideas through the NHS because just follow the money and then you'll get your idea funded. You know, like
Absolutely. And
that's
this
how
is
it's
what the
always
doctors should
worked.
do. This is what the doctors would maybe do themselves. They could maybe improve their experience or be more, valuable for companies out there is to actually understand the commercial part of the business. And it can be done with NHS, even just as exercise, right? You just look into what you do, how much you spend, how much it costs, where the money comes from, because it's
Mm.
my money, it's your money at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So that would be, and again, this is something I seen very, it's rarely to see. You normally see it with doctors who run their own private practices because they are forced to understand this. But with the NHS, sorry, my battery's just died. I'm here with you.
Okay.
Unexpected. But with the um, but with the doctors who particularly been working with the NHS long and they thinking about transferring their skills into private sector or maybe like innovating more, which is unfortunately private sector, or fortunately,
Hmm.
it's the commercial part. The,
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, this is what we do in our Doctors in Industry program.
right.
It's really getting doctors into that commercial mindset. And so you'll hear me talking about money all the time. Like,
That's it.
because
That's the
again, like
way.
in order to get away from that taboo, you've just got to keep on talking about it. Right. And so, and a lot of doctors think, right, in order to get commercial, I need to go and do an MBA. So what would you say to that?
No. I mean, I have no diploma, no degree, right? Like I said, I'm a
You have
dropout from the
no
uni.
degree,
No, I'm a
and
dropout.
you've built a number of different businesses. You've gotten
Yes.
employed a number of different times.
But
You
that's
know,
the amazing
Nike
thing
were
about the
all over
UK.
you when you were like in your 20s.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
That's the
and you
amazing thing
don't have
about
an
the UK.
MBA.
No, nothing. I don't even have diploma. Not, no, it's like literally, I had
Wow.
no time to even do it because I was busy building businesses. And in the UK, in my experience, nobody cares about this as long as you're actually efficient. Like if you have some things to prove, like I can prove my story. Like I have my wins are there. Like that's it. Nobody can take it from me. So I can go against any MBA, any student, any professor who's got a lot of theory of, or the knowledge from a
Yeah,
school or uni. And I respect all of it, but I'm just gonna go against them, say like I don't have it, but I can use tools around me, especially now. I mean, you've got Chat GPT can do everything for us. There's no more excuses really that you have to know these things, right?
it
And
can
again,
literally
like
tell you what to do. You just need to
it
do
will
it. And
literally tell you what.
that's
Yes,
the most difficult bit. It's the implementation, you know.
exactly, right. So you don't need to be a genius to implement. And I would even say
Yeah.
like the smartest people I ever met, they have the most problems running business because they overthink things constantly, right? So if you're like
Absolutely.
somewhere in the middle, not too much, not too little, you just
Yeah.
go with it. And then the only way to really learn it is by doing it, right? So you can learn basics if you want. It's probably good to know it. You can read books about this, but there's nothing else better than actually doing the business itself. Like even a small, as a like a consultant or something on site for a doctor, they can learn basics and they can just grow from there. And it's amazing journey. Also, it's very exciting. It's something new. It gives this extra boost of energy for all of us because we always bored with our jobs, right? Not just doctors, overwhelmed, overstressed. It's just hard. And if you start doing something else and you just start even getting small amount of money from it, it gives you this extra like, oh my God, it's doable. I can
Absolutely.
do
Yeah,
it.
this is possible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean with again with our program, you know, we do a lot of mindset work, which is you have to just I can tell you everything until the cows come home, but you're not
Yeah.
going to believe me until you do it. So you
Exactly
need
that.
just need to do it because we have people who are like overthinking, delaying, overthinking. And then we've
Yeah.
got people who have gotten like 40K contracts in 6 weeks. And the
Yeah.
difference is they both had fear, they both had uncertainty, but the second group just went and did it,
We all
you
have
know,
fear. I
despite
have
all
fear
of
all the
that.
time. Absolutely. Every time, all my experience, I still have my fears. I have family they depend on
Yeah,
me.
same.
But
Same.
I just do it. And, it's like, I like to say, for doctors, treat your patients like clients, and for the all the companies who wants to get into medical sector, treat your clients as patients. And if they do that, that's going to work really well because the doctors will understand the commercials and the companies will stop focusing on commercials only, whether they see
Yeah.
the real person behind the
Yeah.
client,
I think
especially in
that's a great
healthcare.
hybrid, actually. Yeah, I think that's a really great hybrid analogy. I'm going to use that. Final question
I'm giving
before
you
we
permission to use it. There you
jump
go
off.
ahead.
Yeah. You heard it first here, guys. If you could give one piece of advice to doctors stepping into health tech, what would that be in one sentence?
Focus.
GPT it. Sorry.
Sorry, no. I say use your experience to grow, to help growing business. Look at all the tech you want to get into as a business, not necessarily a problem-solving machine. There's more to it. Okay. So if you as a doctor can solve it or can help grow the business with your experience, that's your sweet spot. That's where the gold is. That's what everybody needs.
So, from what you're saying, leverage what you already have, your expertise, to help grow businesses.
Absolutely. And then
Because, yeah,
that's how we innovate. That's how we improve the NHS. That's how we improve
absolutely.
everything. And again, we have to work together it's not just doctors, it's not just entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
it's
it's a collaborative thing. It's a
very,
teamwork. It's a community. It's all of
yeah.
that stuff. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Alex, for opening up your brain today and sharing your wisdom and stories. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, where do they go?
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure. I really liked it. So there are two ways you can find me on my LinkedIn. My name is Alex Landowski, Landowski. I also have my YouTube channel, which is called Non-Native Entrepreneur, where I talk about business and immigrants and mindset and trying to inspire people to assimilate more, integrate more into the
Mhm.
communities so they can improve their lives and then they can improve other lives and maybe even make our country better.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll hear and
Pleasure.
see from you again.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.